Hello and welcome to Researching in Northamptonshire. I'd like to introduce Elsa Churchill, who is the genealogist at the Society of Genealogists. Over to you, Elsa.
Thank you so much for coming, and I'd like to welcome everybody to what is now a series of collaboration events between the Society of Genealogists and representatives from experts in the county that we're focusing on. And today we're focusing on Northamptonshire. I'm going to kick off the session talking about material here at the Society of Genealogists, and then we will have Angela Malin from the Northamptonshire Family History Society, Sarah Bridges from the Northamptonshire Heritage Services, and Paula Orcutt working representing the Vision of Britain Through Time. So I hope between us we'll have some nice ideas about researching in Northamptonshire. So this is the first session. I think I've got about 20 to 25 minutes to sort of talk about what we have at the Society of Genealogists. The Society seeks to create a working genealogical research hub, concentrating on collecting resources, relating on how you do your genealogy. So, of course, we have all the textbooks, guides, journals, and periodicals you'd expect, reflecting our subject of interest, and of course our libraries really focusing on resources for what your ancestors did in their lives, so the collection of occupational records, education and apprenticeship, military service records, tax records, criminal records, poor law, newspapers, trade directories, ecclesiastical licenses, church court records, wills, tombstones, etc., etc., etc. Of course, we focus on trying to find what research has been done before, probably have one of the largest collections of compiled family histories, encouraging people to write up their family history, deposit family histories with the Society, and of course, huge numbers of pedigrees, genealogy research notes, and related um, papers. And I suppose the biggest focus is, of course, collecting resources that help ancestors research in the places and communities where their ancestors lived. So, of course, we'll have material for UK and overseas genealogy resources and records, particularly for the UK, but also the former colonies where the British migrated to. This includes indexes, finding aids, copies and transcripts of vital records of birth, marriage and death, church baptisms, marriages and burials, censuses, directories and other local records. So it is quite a remarkable research library. And in addition to books, prints, micromedia and digital items here in the library, we have an archive of manuscripts, topographical research papers, all of which are here for the focus of sources relating to the places where our ancestors lived. I'm going to have to sort of give just a précis because it is actually quite a remarkable library. There's 157,000 items just recorded in the catalogues, and our research archive is growing quite remarkably. But within the library, there are books, electronic and micromedia materials. That means we have material on the county shelves at Wharf Road on the Northamptonshire shelves. But as we've just moved into our new library, our sixth in our history, we have downsized considerably, and an awful lot is now off the shelf, which does mean it's essential to use the catalogues, which we call SOGCAT, available through our website to find out what we have and where it is. But also we are a partner with Family Search, and the Family Search catalogue means that a lot of items can be viewed via the Family Search catalogue at the Society. Things that they've digitised or indeed still have in microfilm that we have at the Society as an affiliate partner with Family Search. We also, in addition to the library, have our archive of manuscript documents, research papers and notes, special collections and pedigrees, and indeed some original records, all of which are stored off-site. And I'll tell you about how to find some of the lists on our website, which will become what we call the paper lists for our archive collections, being compiled in anticipation of a new archive catalogue, which we hope will be available quite soon. And of course, we do have some digital provision via our website on SOG Explore for some items from the library and collections and archives have been digitised and made available online. That includes original records, some of which have been indexed, databases and digital books as well. So the website is definitely the place to go and look for information, particularly on the library and information pages, which are within the Society's Research Hub tabs on our website. The website, of course, will tell you how to visit the library. It tells you all you need in being able to book a place using the link on the visit page, which takes you to the booking portal in the memberships area. And again, it gives you an idea of how to book your place and order in things that you might have identified from the various catalogues and finding aids to view at the Society. And in addition to the booking, the Visit Us links on the page, you've got the shortcuts to the library catalogue, the archive finding aids, our online resources available for our members, which include digital resources from the library and archives, and guides to the collection. So I hope there's a lot of information on our website which will enable you to find what it is that might be interesting you for the county of Northamptonshire. Typically, a county holdings within our collection will include general items or county-wide materials, things that might include the whole county, such as county histories or compiled pedigrees and genealogies for families within that county, or it might be a tax list that covers the whole of the county, such as the half tax, for example, and of course will indexes, finding aids and records. These are all what we would consider to be general items. We then have what we call local items for specific places within a county. So, for example, within Northamptonshire, the catalogue shows 421 sort of local items for places and sources relating to records in the resources in the library. Most of those are on the shelves at Wharf Road. These can include parish histories, parish chest records, such as transcripts of rate book records or list of borough freemen, local sources that are not church registers. Registers are a separate category, and of course, one of the biggest collections within the Society's county collection. This will include copies, transcripts, indexes, and finding aids. So there are 529 register items for Northamptonshire listed in the library catalogue. These transcripts identified in the catalogue as being bound and in book form have actually all been digitised, and we'll give you the scanned and digital version to view in the library at Wharf Road until we're in more of a position to upload those onto SOG Explore, or those which are our copyright to upload. But again, all the bound copies of registers are now scanned. We do, of course, have microfiche or microfilm copies of original records that we've obtained through the local record office, for example, in the Society's holdings as well, and they're all identified in the catalogue. In addition to Church of England christenings, marriages and burials, we will of course have a large number of copies and transcripts of Protestant nonconformist and indeed other denominations which have church records, again listed all in the catalogue. We do have a phenomenal number of monumental inscriptions, or MIs, copied and transcribed from churchyards and cemeteries, and indeed there are 173 items relating to Northamptonshire for Northamptonshire MIs in our catalogue. Again, those items identified in the catalogue as transcripts of MIs which were in book form have been scanned and need to be ordered in advance to view the digital scanned copy rather than take those from the open shelves at Wharf Road. That means we'd be able to sort of downsize a huge amount of things which were on the open shelves in our former buildings when, prior to moving to Wharf Road. There are a large number of directories, some 64 listed for the county in the catalogue, 19 poll books, significant number of periodicals, etc. And of course, all the family and local history society county record series that you'd expect us to hold. So of course, with so much information not on the open shelves, it is vital to use the catalogues to identify what you want. So you can start with those different search tabs on the SOG website. So on the Search Our Collections tab, you can come to the way to search SOG Explore. Um, our old digital collections are being have actually all now been migrated over to SOG Explore. There's the library catalogue and other projects. So let's start with the library catalogue. So if you click on the link on the tab, you can do a basic sort of, what have you got, for example, for the name of a parish or a town that you're interested in. That's a good simple search. Or you can take the search to the link to the full library catalogue, which that's the same link that you'll find on the library pages, and that gives you the ability to do more advanced searches and sophisticated searches and simple keyword searches, in addition to the sort of subject browse, which is the first pathway we offer you to do that um, on the main website. Probably starting with a place is a good thing to do, as most genealogists know that sources are associated with localities and places are going to be interesting and useful to search for. So, for example, if you search the SOG library catalogue by place, such as for Brackley, parishes of St James and St Peter, you'll see that we have 22 distinct items listed in the catalogue for this parish. I'm not going to print them all out and show you each individual catalogue entry, but that will include things like records, maps, history, and guides relating to the parish, any associated Poor Law Union records that we have for it, church registers, which are copies of the original registers, transcripts and indexing, records of the Church of England parish, and quite a few nonconformist chapels, workhouses, etc. The parish is covered by Boyd's Marriage Index and the Northamptonshire Family History Society Marriage Index, which we have a copy of. There's a large number of probably superseded census indexes compiled by the local family history societies covering that area, and I'm sure these have all been replaced by what's online now, but we do know that local societies probably have a better knowledge of names and places in their areas, and dare I suggest might have been better transcriptions, who says. Some interesting things within the local material, for example, the Chipping Warden, Greens Norton and King Sutton hundreds militia ballot lists, 1762, in the Northamptonshire Militia Records series that covers the parish, and also a history of Magdalen College School at Brackley in Northamptonshire from 1548 to 1949. It's also covered by lists of burgesses, which are published in the Victoria County History volume, and so the coverage of material for Brackley is quite broad, and indeed, it's a good place to start if you're interested in researching that parish by using some of the printed and published material which are available. And of course, we continue to work with local indexers, transcribers, and obtain all the publications from local relevant societies, etc. As you can see here, for entries from Braunston, the catalogue tells you whether the item is on microfiche, film, or CD, and you assume it's a book if not stated otherwise. The catalogue will give its location, whether it's in off-site store, or if it is actually on the county shelf at Wharf Road. As I said, it's likely that the former bound register transcripts with the old shelf mark NH/R will actually now be available as scanned PDFs rather than to view the book itself on the shelf. So you'll have to order that item in. And if you order that item in, we'll let you know if the book has been scanned and viewable on a computer at the library. Boyd's Marriage Index includes only 43 Northamptonshire parishes, only about 14% of the county, and mainly within the miscellaneous series indexed online through SOG Explore. We hold the published Northamptonshire Family History Society Marriage Index from 1700 to 1837, and a microfilm of various parishes in the Henry Isham Longdon collection of transcribed Northamptonshire marriages from 1538 to 1837, the Peterborough Family History Society Area Marriage Index 1837 to 1851, and lots of microfilm copies of the Quaker Digests from Friend's House for circuits covering the county, as well as nonconformist material in the RG4, 5, 6 and 7 series from the TNA. We've got lots of copies of those. Local items, obviously local histories, parish chest records other than parish registers, will be all listed in the catalogue. we've got quite a lot of local material, local histories, extracts from Parish Chest material. With some of the local histories for Northamptonshire particularly, I noted one of our members, Pat Loveridge, got very annoyed if a local history didn't include a name index of the persons mentioned. So she made it her project really to go through quite a few of Northamptonshire local history materials and provided a name index herself. So it's quite, there will be sort of Wollaston, a portrait of a village, and Wollaston, a portrait of a village, the index of persons. That Pat was very annoyed wasn't there in the first place. Other local material might be Christine Viles, for example, transcriptions of the marriage duty assessments for the year 1697 for parishes within the local hundred of Rothwell. She really was the expert in that particular set of records, which almost act as a nice census substitute, listing families eligible for the tax should they have a child baptised, married, or buried, or indeed remained bachelors or widows within the parish during that time at the end of the 17th century. You can definitely broaden out your search from the specific to the whole county. So you can browse the catalogue using some of our distinct subject headings for Northamptonshire General that might be of interest. And indeed, because you'll get a copy of all my slides, you might want to keep an eye on a look at some of these general searches you can do, from almanacs down to wills and World War I and II. This is a good idea to general browse through. There's various topics to see what we have for the whole county, arranged in the A to Z listing of subjects. Within that, for example, within general family history, there are 23 items of compiled family histories of various families within the county, or indeed history, Northamptonshire general history. There's 41 items listed in there. So in addition to the 7-volume Victoria County History of Northamptonshire, we do hold some of the older antiquarian histories, such as Baker's History and Antiquities of the County, or the History and the Liberties of Peterborough, and the History of Bamborough, for example. Sorry, Banbury. Under Northamptonshire General History, we hold what I think are some of the rather rare interesting collections of pedigrees for Northamptonshire families, compiled as a supplement to the Victoria County History. Haven't readily found that online. I'm sure it's available in good libraries in Northamptonshire, but I haven't really found it online. So it's an interesting thing to have at the society. And of course, you'd expect us to have guides to tracing family history and genealogy in Northamptonshire. Or the Northamptonshire Record Society volume, The Wealth of 5 Northamptonshire Families. These are examples of some of the compiled family histories for families in that county that we hold. J.B. Whitmore's bibliography, A Genealogical Guide, indicates that there is a pedigree and a narrative genealogy related to families of the name Isham in the Victoria County History Northamptonshire Genealogies volume. And indeed, it leads us from that references to the pages and the accompanying pedigree within it. You can search the library catalogue for compiled family histories of individual families, and indeed just a search for, family history in Northamptonshire shows that there are a number of the family histories deposited with the Society of Genealogists have been compiled for people who have an interest in a particular family in Northamptonshire, whether it's the Craddock family of Kettering, book collecting Ishams of Northamptonshire, for example. So do search for a surname in the catalogue and see what there is. If something says it is a family history with the old shelf mark FH and stroke and then the next 3 letters of the family it's concerned with, those items too are being scanned, and when you order, when it's marked as an off-site item, it's quite likely we'll say we will give you a digital copy to view that in the society when you come to view it at the SOG. We've got thousands and thousands of compiled individual family histories in the collection, and we're scanning and all making digital copies of those in partnership with Family Search as we speak. Continuing the general subject area, covering the whole county, we do, of course, have the volumes of Northamptonshire and Rutland clergy, those biographical notes compiled from 1500, compiled by Henry Isham Longden, again, useful if you're researching a clergyman in the county, for example. Prior to 1858, Northamptonshire was mostly in the Diocese of Peterborough and the Consistory of Peterborough for the northern parts of the county and the Archdeaconry of Northamptonshire for the southern. We have the published transcripts and microfilm indexes and finding aids for the various church courts, wills, records at the Society, and of course digital copies made by Family Search of the original records, and of course access to Find My Past in the library, who's had a partnership with the Record Office to digitise the records. County is very well served by very active and flourishing local record and family history societies. So relevant periodicals for the county include the Northamptonshire Record Society publications, Footprints, the Journal of Northamptonshire FHS, the Journal of the Peterborough and District Family History Society, local history societies like the Gretton Local History Society, the Rutland Magazine and County Historical Record are some of the older ones as well. Books listed in the SOG library catalogue will indicate if it's been scanned and digitised for members to view online through our SOG Data Online facility known as SOG Explore. So if the catalogue suggests, let's here for example, that the poll for the electors of 2 burgesses to represent the town and county of Northamptonshire for 1826, it does actually say it's been scanned and available on SOG Data Online, and you can view that item in the on SOG Explore if you're a member from home. We haven't digitised too many books from relating to Northamptonshire, but some of those I noted, it included a number of directories and poll books from the collection, also the Bedfordshire and Northamptonshire volumes of the National War of the Great War, our own county National Index of Parish Register Guide for registers for the county is available online, and indeed some of the earlier journal Northamptonshire Notes and Queries we've digitised. Presumably they were getting a bit fragile and were digitised and to put up online. The SOG online platform is called SOG Explore, and this allows us to publish indexes of records, including transcripts of registers and monumental inscriptions, Boyd's Marriage Index, and lots of digitised items from our library and archives. As I said, lots of directories and poll books and scanned local histories, for example. So you can identify Northamptonshire items by using the A to Z listing of records to find those poll books, and you can see where browsable images of the books have been made available online, or indeed made searchable, because having put all the poll books online, our team can index the names available on them. I should say that this is still an ongoing project, and there are more poll books and directories listed in the catalogue than we have actually put up online. So it's worth keeping an eye on the catalogue and then keeping an eye on SOG Explore as things are added. But however, for example, there is the Leicestershire and Rutland History and Gazetteer Directory for 1863, which is available to view, and every time you view on the particular browse on the particular page, it'll pop up in the Explore viewer. You can also search by name across various databases from the library that we put online. So, for example, name Isham does appear because we've indexed quite a few of the Northamptonshire poll books, or it appears in the Victorian Northamptonshire digitised book, and indeed indicates whether if the name might appear in some of the digitised roll pedigrees from the collection. So I notice that there is Gregory Isham from Braunston has been mentioned in one of our pedigree rolls. Pedigree rolls are currently being transferred from the old platforms onto the new. It hasn't quite finished all the work and the functionality of it yet, but indeed you can view one of the thousands of rolled pedigrees, huge roll pedigrees, which have been digitised and abstracted by our volunteers. This one goes on to several pages. The navigation within the pedigree to find where Gregory is a bit of a challenge at the moment. But again, wait for that, and then you'll be able to navigate your way through the tree to find Gregory in the rolled pedigree very soon. So moving on from the digital items from our library to our manuscript archive, and just to finish up, there are about 150 boxes on what we call the topographical place papers, and a few microfiche of versions of those as well in the library. By topographical, we mean pertaining to or dealing with a place rather than the name, from topography, which the Oxford English Dictionary defines as the science or describing the particular place, city, town, manor, parish, or tract of land. These additions to what we call our topographical documents are listed as when they come in the Genealogist magazine, and they may have come from donations or, for example, the clearances of local solicitors' deed boxes, working with the British Record Association, which acts as a clearinghouse for such dispersals. So quite a lot of surprisingly original documents and deeds have ended up at the Society, basically because they probably had no other place to go when we obtained them. Up until now, you've not been able to see what's been in the topographical or manuscript collections without coming to the Society to view the old archive finding aids, or paper lists as we call them. But we have made scanned copies of these old paper lists. So there is a scanned copy of the archive card catalogue saying whether the surname is represented in any of our special collections, whether the surname is represented in our document collection of miscellaneous research notes, or whether the place you're interested in is represented in our topographical collections. And there, for example, you'll see that there is the scanned copy of the list of the contents for the Northamptonshire topographical collection. It is only one box in this case, and but it goes on to several folders, place by place, telling you, just an absolute lucky dip miscellany of the kind of things that may come into it. It might be transcripts of copies, it might just be lists of deeds relating to the name, or it might be the original document itself. Here, for example, is an original obligation, deed of obligation relating to William and Elizabeth Whitwell of Harringworth. So no, this must be one of the earliest documents that we just have that have come to us more by happenstance than anything else. But you wouldn't expect to find something like that at the Society of Genealogists Library or Archive, I suspect. And just to finish up, the Society is, of course, an affiliate partner with Family Search. So do look not only at our own catalogue and archive lists from our website, but view the Family Search catalogue to see what records might have been digitised, and that which we may be able to view at the Society of Genealogists Library. And of course, we'll have subscription to all the major genealogy websites such as Ancestry, Find My Past, Genealogist, etc. in the library. So I do hope you come and get the opportunity to come to the Society, to make use of what we have on site, as well as things which we're making available for members to view online. You can come and take a tour of the Society with our librarian Christine Worthington. We're having a special day for researching at the SOG later this week. She'll show you around, showing the resources I've mentioned for researching family history in the county of Northamptonshire, and she'll be on hand to answer any questions and an opportunity to network and meet others researching the family in the same area. So I hope you enjoy your time focusing on your Northamptonshire ancestors when you come and see us later this week. So I'll end there and
Hello, welcome to Angela Malin from the Northamptonshire Family History Society, and she's the chairman there, and she's going to tell us all about what the Family History Society can provide for us.
Hey, and away we go. Lovely to see so many of you here today. It's nice to see some of our members have joined us as well. So I'm Angela Malin, I'm chair of the Family History Society, have been for a number of years. So firstly, I'm going to chat about the Society and what it's got to offer, and then I will give an overview of the county, including the historic administrative background, which can sometimes help you find other records that don't always show up under a parish search. Then we'll look at other resources such as local history societies, museums, and online sources for researching in the county. So I'm not going to touch anything about the archive because that's Sarah's department, and she'll then cover it in the next talk. So the Society was founded in 1976, so next year is going to be our golden anniversary. So we're looking at holding a number of events to commemorate the occasion. So I guess if you're new to researching in the county, perhaps a good place to start is visit our website. We've got a number of public pages that will be of interest. There's one about our meetings, so we hold them on second Monday of the month at Kettering, and on the third Monday of the month at Western Fayville on the outskirts of Northampton. We also do a monthly help desk, which are free, so just turn up and that's on the first Saturday of the month at Northamptonshire Archives and on the first Thursday of the month at Moulton Library. Our website also has a list of surname interests, so the details of the families and the places that our members are researching. So that's available on our website. And if you happen to match any of those, you can ask to be put in contact with that member, and that's done via our membership secretary, so no personal details are actually online. Another good place to look at on our website is the resources page, one covering county resources. And they do include several downloadable guides, mainly to collections at the archives or links to other websites. So they'll cover topics such as cemeteries, maps, workhouses, nonconformity, and other items. So if you are a member, and why not consider joining us, then you'll get some extra benefits. So membership of the society is £12 a year, and our year runs from the 1st of July. So now's a good time to join. So as a member, you'll get a copy of our quarterly journal called Footprints, a monthly e-newsletter, so that keeps you updated with things going on between the journal and upcoming meetings and other events. Access to a monthly Zoom meeting on various topics to help you with your research, and also access to our members only area. Here there's lots various searchable databases, some additional resources and guides that are not available on public pages, and the back copy of all our journals with an index, so that's indexed by place name, surname, topic, and so on. So hopefully through that you might find something of interest to help you with your research. So membership's £12, so that's £1 a month, bargain. Another place to explore is our bookstall. Else has covered some of them already, but yes, we have an ongoing project to record the memorials in the churchyards around the county. So far, 230 parishes have been published as small booklets, as you can see in the images. We also sell various other publications, so they might cover poor law union records or nonconformist transcriptions, and so on. All of our publications are available on parishchest.com, which is run by the Family History Federation. So one of the bestsellers is a booklet called A Short Guide to Researching Your Local and Family History at Northamptonshire Archives, and you'll all get a PDF copy of this book sent to you after the talk. You can contact us via the email info@northants-fhs.org, and that's details of our web address are there. We're happy to answer any queries because we've got detailed knowledge of the county, the families, and the local history resources. However, we do not undertake detailed research on your behalf and suggest you either contact Northamptonshire Archives, who have their own in-house researcher, or go through one of the professional organisations like AGRA to find a researcher who can do the work for you. So now I'm going to have a look at resources for researching in Northamptonshire. As you can see from the images, quite a varied county, quite beautiful in parts. Too many people drive straight through it instead of stopping to have a look at some of the very pretty villages we have. So Northamptonshire, well, it's situated in the centre of England. Historically, it was surrounded by 9 other counties. There are over 340 parishes. The county stretches 73 miles from Stamford on the Lincolnshire border in the northeast to Ayno on the Oxfordshire border in the south. So it had good transport network, still does. The Watling Street, the old Roman A5, the turnpike roads, and the River Nen from the Wash was made navigable to Northampton by 1768. So again, that facilitated bringing in goods, certainly coal and things like that. The Oxford Canal opened in 1790 to link Oxford and the Thames to the Midland coalfields via Braunston. This quickly followed by the Grand Union Canal via Stoke Bruin and Cosgrove, and later, of course, came the railways. So thus the county offered quite a lot of employment and attracted migration into the county from outside to the area. And certainly lots of hopping backwards and forwards across the county borders. So do be aware of that when you're researching. Again, historically, for the administration of the county, it was divided into hundreds. It's sort of administrative areas, similar to what you'd have now as a borough councils and that. So there were 12 of these different hundreds as shown on the map. So you will find that some records, like tax records, manorial records, militia lists, are actually organised by the hundred, not the parish. And that's worth bearing in mind when you're searching by name. You might want to search by the hundred name and not the parish name, and you'll perhaps find some different lists and records. Pre-1541, the county was in the Diocese of Lincoln. So early, if you're lucky to get that far back, so early ecclesiastical records are going to be at Lincolnshire Archives. After 1541, after the Reformation, the Diocese of Peterborough was created, so diocesan records from that date are held at Northamptonshire Archives, and this does include the BTs for Rutland as well, because that was part of the diocese. Pre-1974, Peterborough, as we've already heard, was part of Northamptonshire, roughly corresponding, if you're not familiar with the county, to the Nasaborough 100. So many records for that area will also be at Northamptonshire Archives. Records created in more modern times will now be found either at Peterborough Archives or Cambridgeshire Archives. Again, up to 2021, there was 1 county council and 7 district councils. Now there are 2 local authorities, North Northants Council and West Northants Council. So again, some records like rate books or education records and so on will be organised via the different councils. So it may be worth considering that when you're doing searches. Looking online, these are the main commercial websites. So Ancestry, the parish registers have been digitised, and also the BTs up to around 1912. On Find My Parish, you'll find some additional parish transcriptions, various militia records, not all of them, from 1638 to 1819, 1674 half tax, Northampton and Rutland probate index, so not the original documents, but an index to the original documents held at Northants Archives. It's on Find My Past, so if you did come across a will or other document, then copies of those can be obtained from the archives. There's also the Northampton General Hospital admission, so it's an index and the details that are held in the index books. That's also available. The Genealogist has tithe apportionment maps for various dates, and also the 1910 Inland Revenue Doomsday Survey and maps. So if you don't subscribe to Ancestry or Find My Past, then usually you can use them free at local libraries, archives, including the Northamptonshire ones. Newspapers, I'm not going to read them all out. You can see what there is, but there is very good coverage on the British Newspaper Archive website, which again is accessible via Find My Past. But don't forget to look at other adjacent counties too. For example, many articles for the south of the county may well appear in an Oxfordshire newspaper rather than perhaps a Northampton Mercury. And likewise, for the Oundle area, you'll perhaps find articles in the Stamford paper because that is nearer to Oundle than what Northampton is. Other titles, such as Northamptonshire Independent or other coverage, you can find on microfilm at Northamptonshire Archives or the local studies. Poor law unions, there were 12 workhouses in Northamptonshire after the 1834 Poor Law Act. They're detailed there, so Peterborough, Oundle, Kettering, Thrapston, Brixworth, Wellingborough, Northampton, Hardingstone, Towcester, Pottersbury, Daventry and Brackley. Any surviving records will be at Northamptonshire Archives, except for Pottersbury, which are held at Buckinghamshire Archives, but actually very, very little survives for that workhouse. Due to lobbying from local landowners, the boundaries of unions generally follow those of the great estates. So, for example, the Brixworth Union covered parishes belonging to Earl Spencer, and the Pottersbury Union covered parishes owned by the Duke of Grafton. So many of the landowners became guardians. And of course, this gave them greater social control over the people living in their parishes. The unions also formed the basis for the new civil registration districts in 1837. But do be aware that some border parishes may come under adjacent counties for either the poor law unions or civil registration. For example, Middleton Cheney comes under Banbury for both the union workhouse and for civil registration. Northamptonshire was quite a non-conformist county, with many early meetings and chapels. So do take this into account when you're researching. And many families may have had their life events or gone and had the life events at the church, but actually attended a non-conformist place of worship at all other times. And of course, where you're lucky, if you are lucky enough to have non-conformist ancestors, the records can actually be quite detailed. So Society of Friends was around in Northamptonshire from more or less its early formation. Certainly there were a number of early chapels, Budbrook, Wellingborough. Likewise for the independent or congregational chapels. As you can see there, and early Baptist chapels at Road, Northampton, Kettering, Walgrave and others. So most surviving records will be at Northamptonshire Archives or were deposited with the National Archives in 1836 and of course since been digitised. Occupations could be roughly said they were defined by geology. The uplands and rolling hills on the western side made it an important area for sheep pasture. Until the late 18th century, Northants was the second largest county producer of long wool. And of course, that led to an increase of weaving in serges, tamish saloons, which are a type of twills or woolstead. And that was particularly prevalent over on the western side of the county. And Kettering was an important centre. But the trade collapsed with the Napoleonic Wars and the growth of mills in the northern counties, and Kettering actually became quite a poor town. So that on the opposite side, the lowlands and the river valleys along the eastern boundary offered good pasture for cattle and thus for the leather industry, including tanneries and the shoe trade. The county was also on the main droving routes from Wales and the north. Lace making was a common cottage industry in the south and southeast along the Bucks and Bedfordshire borders. And from late Victorian times, ironstone quarrying became very important, particularly in the Corby, Wellingborough, Thrapston area. It was transported by rail to smelting furnaces. The map there shows the main railway in the dark blue in the bottom right-hand corner, but the other railways, the yellow and the bright aqua blue, are actually the branch lines set up by the ironstone companies. So you can see how an extensive trade it was. Elsa's already mentioned some of the county books, so I'll just run through them again, sorry. To find out more about the parish and place your ancestor lived, which of course you need to do to get a full picture of their lives, perhaps look at trade directories because they give a potted history and details of the landowners, places of worship, schools, things like that. And of course, there's many online, some on Google Books, some on Internet Archive. You look at the county histories, two main ones were bridges. The material was collected in the 1720s and it was published in the 1790s. And then there's George Baker's History of Northamptonshire, published in the 1840s. Alongside that, we have the Victoria County histories. So they're going to give you a manorial history, obviously then useful for the main landowners, economic history, and will lead you on to other sources because all of those books have footnotes and they say where the information they found that information. So it can lead you back to the original sources. Volumes 1 to 5 of the VCH are online on British History Online. There's lots of parish histories. There were certainly a number of them written for Millennium projects, and there's obviously other historic ones as well. A good place to start for that is to look at the library catalogue for Northamptonshire libraries. If you find a particular book, then it might be worth searching second-hand booksellers to see if you can pick up a copy. Or you may be able to borrow it through the interlibrary lending scheme. So we have a local studies section at Northampton Central Library. So whereas the archives will have Northamptonshire records, deeds and other historic documents, local studies got much more emphasis on, obviously, on books and local ephemera and pamphlets and so on. So a good collection of trade directories and particularly footwear directories and biographies of the shoe companies prevalent in the town. It's access to family history records. They've got a good collection of maps and also a good photographic collection. If you're thinking of visiting, though, do check the opening hours before going because they're more limited than the main library. Now, quick drink. So, Northamptonshire Heritage Forum is the umbrella organisation for heritage societies, organisations, museums and historic homes in the county. They publish a quarterly newsletter showing what's going on in the county, and all the back copies are on the website. So if you want to know, what upcoming exhibitions, say, a museum's holding or what events are coming up, then do look at some of the back copies. You can also download a booklet which gives the full listing of all the members and their contact details. Both Northampton Family History Society and Northamptonshire Archives are members, so we both work closely with all our other heritage partners in the county. So we'll look at some of these in a bit more detail. So museums, again, see the listing on the Heritage Forum website. Some of the smaller ones, they have limited opening hours, but many of the towns such as Long Buckby, Daventry, Howdle, Towcester, Earls Barton all have museums with detailed collections about their area. They've obviously got lots of information and artifacts relating to their area. They have photographic collections as well. Many of them hold exhibitions and all of them welcome inquiries. So if you know, a particular interest, say your family came from Oudle, it may be worth contacting Oudle Museum to see if they've got any information. Northampton has 2 museums. So there's a museum and art gallery in the town centre, holds a number of museums, different number of exhibitions, particularly concentration on the Great Fire of Northampton at the moment because it's 350 years when the town centre was burnt down. So the museum has dedicated galleries showing the history of the town from Saxon times and when it had a royal castle through to the modern era. They also have shoe collections gallery, Northamptonshire being important for the shoe trade, with examples of the machinery used and so various records they have both at home workshops or in the larger factories in the town. Abington Museum, towards the east of the town, has a gallery commemorating life in the town from 1800 to 1950. But they've also got a military gallery where stories of Northamptonshire Regiment and the Northamptonshire Yeomanry are told. And they often hold, not probably on a quarterly basis, help desk sessions for any military inquiries. Another useful source, of course, are village history societies. Many villages have their own websites. Some may be part of a parish council one, but those with a village history society likely to have their own website and likely to be more detailed. A number of them do include their own local publications, or they have transcriptions. They've perhaps done a survey of the church or the chapel, oral histories, and have local photographs. 2 particularly good ones are those for Rushden and the area around there, and also for Burton Latimer. So they're definitely, but any of the other village websites are definitely worth a look to see if there's anything on there that might help you out. Northamptonshire Records Society is an educational charity promoting interest about Northamptonshire. They publish books and journals. They've actually now, fairly recently, digitised many of their back publications. And they're available to download from their website. So some you might find useful are Kettering Vestry Minutes, 1797 to 1853. Some Northamptonshire drawings from the early 18th century, militia lists for 1777, done by Hundred and then Parish, so that's quite useful. Rockingham Forest, Open Fields, but there are others as well. Also on the Record Society website, look for the tab called Signposts. They say there's over 500 links to free local history. It covers a myriad of topics. This is just a screenshot of the section on economic history, but it covers everything from archaeology, army, clergy, landscape, nonconformity, and much more. So don't start looking unless you've got a couple of hours to spare, because you might get quite engrossed in it all. But yes, it's quite useful for pinpointing different bits and pieces you may not have come across before. And finally, just to repeat, they're the contact details for the Society. If you have any queries or questions, then do pop them into the chat or raise them later in the question and answer section. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I'd now like to welcome Sarah Bridges from the Archives and Heritage Services. She's the manager there as part of Northamptonshire County Council. Over to you, Sarah.
Okay, thanks very much. And I'm really, really pleased to be here as part of the partnership with the Society of Genealogists and Northamptonshire Family History Society. Yes, Northamptonshire Archives and Heritage Service is managed by West Northamptonshire Council, in fact, on behalf of West Northamptonshire and North Northamptonshire Councils. We don't like to talk about Northamptonshire County Council, which was abolished in 2021, so let's pass over that rapidly. So the Archives and Heritage Service. So we're here to look after the archives and heritage of the county to make sure it's preserved and conserved. And this, or the archives certainly date from the 12th century right up to modern times. And those archives might come from the parishes, the family estate collections, from businesses, solicitors, local charities, schools, local authorities even. So we've got a huge range of material, and what we want to do is to make sure that people are encouraged to use this material, whether it's for their family history research, local history research, history of the house, for a PhD or school education or whatever. We want people to look at the archives, use the archives, enjoy the archives, because using archives is fun, and tracking down your family history is fun. So we want you to come and use our service. I think these slides are coming out to you, so the link there should take you to our website, and there's lots of resources there which tell you about coming in to use the service, or using our various different online resources, the online catalogue, email, digital imaging, and so on. I'm not going to go through the details of how our systems and procedures work here. The main thing to say is that, when you come in, and indeed when you contact us by email, we've got a small team, but we're very friendly. We don't bite. We really are here to help you to find your way through the dazzling number of indexes and help you identify the sources that you want to look at. Or if you're not quite sure, we can give you help and suggestions. That's our job. That's what we want to do. And in terms of the service, most of you will be familiar with county record offices. We all work on the same principle. We're all slightly different. We've all got our different approaches to document production and sort of the way we do things. But we're just here to help you. So today, and I'm very, very grateful to Angela for setting the scene. So I now know that I'm speaking to a group of experts. You all know now about Northamptonshire. I don't need to explain it to you. And the sources that I'm going to gallop through are ones that have been suggested to me by Angela. She's the family history expert. I'm simply an archivist who's trying to make sure that we understand the records that we hold here and that we find the best ways to make them accessible to you. So I'll say, if these aren't the right records to be telling you about, then I'll absolve myself of any responsibility, says she unkindly. No, let's say start our gallop through now. So the first thing that I want to tell you about is about what we tend to call parish chest records. And I know Elsa's talked about parish chest, but here what I want to talk about are the papers that were created under the various Poor Law Acts of Parliament relating to the settlement of the poor before 1834. So essentially the old Poor Law. What we've done, or what our volunteers have done, and Angela being one of them, is created an index of the various different documents that usually have to be searched for within a parish collection. So you have to know that your ancestors came from Geddington or they came from Brackley or whatever to be able to track down that there are some poor law papers relating to your ancestors. But what the index does is that it's comprehensive across all the 340 ancient parishes of the county, so that you can check the index for the surname in which you're interested, and hopefully find a number of different entries and work through them in terms of which ones might relate to your family. So the sort of documents that we're looking at are the documents relating to the settlement of the poor. And this was all related to looking after the poor and how much it would cost. Vitally important in the days when the individual parishes were responsible for looking after the poor, who might become, the terminology was chargeable to the parish. Who was going to pay for these poor people who weren't able to support themselves? So a lot of energy went into trying to determine which parish should be responsible for looking after a poor person. And we get documents like settlement certificates, settlement examinations, removal orders, bastardy examinations, and so on. And these documents are absolutely amazing ones that you really, if you find for your family, you've found gold dust, really. And the index entries enable you to track down a particular family and where, for example, they might have been moved from parish to parish. So you might know that the family was born in Blisworth, but they've moved out of there because they become destitute, and actually that's not where they're legally settled. And you might find it quite difficult to track them down. But this index will help you to do that. It's not online yet, but we do have, I was going to say a hard copy, an electronic copy of it that we're still working on, and Angela's helping us with that. And so, but we can look at that on your behalf in the meantime. So it is coming to a computer near you very, very shortly, but it will be a fantastic thing. And the sort of documents, and some of you will be familiar with these, but settlement examinations are just the most wonderful documents. This is where an individual is examined about their place of birth, whether they've done an apprenticeship somewhere, whether they got married, how many children they have, and so on. And when these slides are sent round, do read this one. This is just absolutely wonderful. This is a lovely example of a young girl, age 16, who's been disappointed and crossed in love and has rashly run away with someone else, and has been living in sin with him and had lots of children, lived under an alias, in fact. And then he's disappeared, and she's basically destitute. And the parish are trying to work out, or the justices are trying to decide who's responsible for looking after her and her children. Here's a removal order for a carpenter. I'd been removed from a parish in Bedfordshire back to Northamptonshire. I chose this one because it's quite unusual. I mean, why you think a carpenter would be able to look after himself, or at least find work. So quite unusual that someone who you think was able to support himself has fallen on hard times. There obviously isn't enough work for him, and he's been removed back to his parish. So again, he's moved across county boundaries. So you might think, well, again, might find it very, very difficult to track down that member of your family if it wasn't for the index that, say, we're about to publish. Oh, and this is one of my favourite examples, so forgive me, people who've heard me wax lyrical about Elizabeth Kirby before. This is an examination because someone's about to give birth to a bastard child, and that was the terminology used at this date, 18th century, because very, very important. If a child was born and we don't know who's could be legally responsible for that child, then again, the parish in which the child is born might have a liability to pay for that child. And this one is a lovely, lovely tale where she tells about Thomas Goodall and all the different places where he had carnal knowledge of her body, in the cow meadow, in the churchyard, in a stable, and lots of other places. So you get a lovely little story there. And yes, it's fun, and oh, even if she's your ancestor, surely that's good fun. Apprenticeship indentures, again, is a rather nice one. So moving from Geddington to Kettering, not very far, but again, helps you track someone down. So that was a whistle-stop tour through our Parish Chest records. I told you it was going to be a whistle-stop tour, but you know, look, boot and shoe company records. Our county is very, very famous for producing shoes. Angela's already mentioned the museum, and obviously large part of their display is shoes. So what about the records? So if you know your members of your family were working in the shoe trade, what chance have you of tracking them down in archives? So we do have quite a lot of company records, but it is quite hard to find personnel records. Some wages books survive, tend to be late 19th, early 20th century, because the early times when people were literally cottage workers, those records, if records were kept, they simply don't survive. But we do have a list, sort of summary list of all the shoe company records that we have, and can very easily tell you whether we've got records for a particular company in which you're interested. Now, I mean, this is where perhaps I proved myself wrong. So we have some ledgers from Pierce and Company who made leather, and I was just helping to accession this wonderful collection not very long ago, and suddenly I was just looking through these ledgers, which are basically sales of quantities of leather to other companies, and there was an entry for W.E. Bridges, who was buying leather for, and I happened to know that he was buying leather for the bookbinding company, Hazel Watson and Viney, for whom he worked. So this is my grandfather, William Ernest Bridges, who worked for Hazel Watson and Viney in Aylesbury. And there, a tingle went down my spine when I opened this ledger. Really wasn't what I was expecting. So, there's a link between my grandfather and Northampton, which I just didn't know there was one, but he came to buy leather for his bookbinding company, or he was the master bookbinder at this point. So you can find information in those ledgers that might give you a tingle down your spine, just like me. The other sorts of things that we do have lots of are records of staff events. This is the Barrett Company, a staff event. I don't think it's Christmas. I can't see Christmas trees, but I'm not quite sure. If your grandmother or grandfather is in this picture, please let me know. I'd really like to understand what's happening here, but this is a rather nice picture. Nobody sitting in the sort of front row there, just which looks slightly odd, but anyway, that's quite fun. And staff newsletters. We've got, for example, from George Webb and Sons, the staff newsletters from the 1930s and 40s. I mean, I love the little pictures here. So you've got, "Oi, Bert, keep your eyes on my George Webb shoes." It's rather a sexist advert, actually, with the young man looking at the lady in the bikini instead of keeping his eye on the George Webb shoes. But also, if you look there, then you'll see that more significantly for you as a family historian, then you'll see you've got the lists of employees who've just entered the service of the company in the previous month. So you've got a list of names of people entering the clicking room, the closing room, the making room, and so on. So say if your ancestor, you didn't quite know when they joined the company, through these newsletters, you could find out. And you find out about the angling holiday they've done, the table tennis club commencing, the social centre opening at 5:15 every day, and so on. So again, you're trying to get a little bit more information about what life was like as a shoe worker in the 20th century. And these are some more George Webb bulletins, news about marriages, editor sending greetings for Christmas. I think it's a trades association tennis cup being presented and so on. And a little interview there. Mr. Horace Taylor, who's the oldest clicker in the company, and his sort of reflections on the company. Now, I mean, if Mr. Horace Taylor is one of your relatives. I mean, how lovely is that? So a picture of him in action, and his reflections on the improvements in working conditions in the company. So there are sources that you can find out about people working in the shoe trade, I say particularly late 19th and early 20th century. So do come and ask, or do write to us and ask. There isn't a huge amount, but well worth checking. So, again, galloping onwards, family estate collections. We really are the county of spires and squires. We do have some absolutely fantastic family estate archives. I mean, I think it's fair to say that particularly for the 16th and 17th centuries, we've got some of the best family estate archives of any county record office in England, or England and Wales indeed. So the collections are absolutely outstanding, nationally and internationally important. Now, I mean, those are often because of the importance of the people, the dukes and duchesses, the earls and ladies. But for you as family historians, don't forget that in terms of the family estate collections, these people, whether it's the Duke of Buccleuch or the Brudenells of Dean or the Westmans of Apethorpe or Cartwrights of Ainhoe, these people owned vast tracts of land. So they were landowners, they were employers. So there are lots and lots of different documents that can help you as family historians. So although what survives for these different estates does change from estate to estate, and the covering dates do change, if you've got a parish and you think that it might be part of the Grafton estate or say the Buccleuch estate or whatever, do ask, do think about checking with us for estate archives. You might be lucky enough that you were back in the 17th century and able to look at 17th century surveys. This is a wonderful one for Wimbledon. And this is Wimbledon and the tennis starting soon, I believe. And because the Spencers had a lot of land in Wimbledon, I don't know if they still have, but listing. So this is a listing of all the tenants and their land in Wimbledon in the early 17th century, and complete with rather lovely little drawings of probably what's quite an accurate representation of what some of those houses might have looked like. So out of county, well worth looking at. But more usually, the rentals will look something like this. Here are some 18th century rentals. So just listing all the names of those people, in this case in Brigstock, paying rent to one particular family. But, that shows you that Henry Atkins was on his particular property in 1748. He's paid a year's rent at Michaelmas 1749, and Michaelmas 1748, Michaelmas 1749, and so on. And you can track him through, perhaps he might have been there 20 years, 30 years, then you might be able to see it being handed over to a son, and so on. So, these are very, very important sources and can be used to track someone down across the years. So not just rentals, do think about using stewards' accounts from estate collections. Again, these are 18th century ones, but tasks for His Grace in this case. We've got payments made, including a free gift to Dorothy Sutton, who's paid £84. One wonders what on earth she did for His Grace to merit being paid £84. Or perhaps we shouldn't ask. Anyway, beside that, we get someone doing some weeding for His Grace, who still gets £25, which does seem an awful lot of money. But names of people, and that's similarly on the building and repair work. So you might get, if you know that your ancestors rented a particular property, you might get work done to that particular property through these accounts. And also and the names of people doing that work, or conversely, if your ancestor was a mason or a carpenter or some sort of workman, you may find them being mentioned in these estate accounts. So if your ancestor lived in an estate village, then do please look at estate rentals, estate accounts, and see if you can identify them. And you're likely, again, to be able to put so much more sort of flesh on the bones of your family tree, begin to get some sort of insight into what that ancestor's life was like. Coming into more recent times, servants' wages. Tend not to get servants' wages in any detail before the 19th century, though there are some exceptions. But here are some ones from the Spencer estate. And we've got the men's wages here, the steward and the cook and the valet and the groom and the footman. And the nice thing about these is that the individuals have signed that they've received their wages. So this might be one chance of actually seeing a signature of your ancestor. I mean, they might not have got married, there might not be a signature in a marriage register. So this is very, very nice. Compared with the women, sorry, it's not so clear. Kitchen maids and laundry maids and so on. And you might like to compare how much the women got paid compared with the men. I can assure you the women got paid much less. Again, they've signed it. You can see in purple there, if you can't read it, but it says by cheque. So I think it's the female servants who are at their London properties, the Spencer London property, who've been sent cheques, and the people, ladies who are, they wouldn't have been called ladies, the women who've been who are working at Althorpe, who've been paid in person. But the lovely detail there, and again we've got those for periods of time for some of the estates, so you could track your ancestor over a period of time. And here's some wonderful things from the Spencer Archive, again very, very unusual, but the terms of employment. And here's Miss Eleanor Saint, terms of employment, 1823. She's the housekeeper engaged by Earl Spencer, and she gets 30 guineas a year, which is pretty good. And she's also allowed milk, cream, beer, and vegetables, presumably not all mixed together. And she's allowed privileges from the emoluments from showing the house. You think of Pride and Prejudice and showing the house to visitors. And she's also got to go to church on a Sunday, every Sunday, of course, strictly required. She's got to do preserving, pickling, distilling. So, mix of tasks here. She's allowed 2 housemaids and 1 other called the housekeeper, but quite limited. And there are other restrictions on her. But again, just building up that picture, what was it like to be the housekeeper for Earl Spencer in the 1820s? Absolutely amazing. If you're very lucky, you might be able to get into the manorial court records, might be able to make out some of the details of surnames. There's some lovely, lovely examples of manorial court records. But skipping on, there we are. Presentments against people who are common bowlers. This all come to you. Skipping on to hospital and asylum records, yes, because otherwise we'll not get through this. We've got some absolutely fantastic hospital records, and we can learn about the administration, but what you'll want to know about is the people and what we can find out about people. So we've got Northampton General Hospital. So this is the general hospital looking after people who were ill or had something wrong with them. The admission registers survive right back to 1744. So this is the first page, or just about one of the first pages in that first volume, listing the individuals, how old they are, what's wrong with them, how long they've been ill, and whether they're discharged or not, sometimes cured, sometimes incurable, sometimes relieved, so they're not being cured. So that's they're amazing. The index to those, as has already been mentioned, is on Find My Past. We've got lots and lots of different registers for Northampton General Hospitals, surgical admissions, there's operation books, there's standard admissions, discharge registers, and so on. all covering different periods. So again, ask to see the list, ask us what we've got. Some things can't be made accessible simply because of the general data protection regulations. So basically anything that's less than 100 years old won't be accessible to you. But going before then, there's a lot of detail that you can find out. So Northampton General Hospital, fantastic collection. And say not just patients, so some staff records as well. We've got details of those people who kept the hospital running, and again how much they were paid, and how many hours they worked, and signing the records for receiving their money. So this is again absolutely fantastic, and we've had a lot of people looking at these for their grandparents or great-grandparents, and finding a lot of information about them. So really, really lovely. But two ones we've got about sort of people's mental health, which I find particularly fascinating in terms of both different ways of treating people for mental health problems, and obviously for the individual case stories. So we've got both the records for St Andrew's Hospital and for the Northampton General Lunatic Asylum, as it was called. So they're very, very sort of similar in the detail that you get from them. Here's a case from 1863 from someone in St Andrews. So you'd always get a date that someone's admitted, you get a physical state of someone, you get a description of them, which might be your one description of that person, particularly in those days before photographs, of course, and then you'll get a mental description of them, and then you'll get the ongoing detail of the case, and what sort of behaviours they're exhibiting, and potentially the sort of interventions that have been tried. This is another one slightly later, so you can see the format of the registers changes, but and obviously the treatments change as time goes on. But the core is still there. This is I chose Lucy Bale because actually she's been incarcerated in the lunatic asylum because she's just given birth. Been diagnosed with mania. We would have assumed that she'd got postnatal depression, but she's been diagnosed with mania, which is terribly sad. And that's just to show you what a page looks like. It's a lot to go through, so if you want to start looking through these, do allow plenty of time. And on the lighter side, St Andrews, special provisions for people, extra ginger beer, extra biscuits for individual patients. So that's rather fun. Angela's just asked me to mention finally the World War I tribunal papers, because they're very, very unusual survival. These were usually destroyed. These are the papers from the County Appeals Tribunal, where you've got people who've been conscripted to serve in World War I, but they felt they should be exempt. And these are absolutely fascinating. If your ancestor is named in one of these, or there are papers around them, you can get so much information about their lives. And the examples I've just chosen are, got Charles White, who says that his mother's bedridden and his father suffers from rheumatism, and he's the only one at home, and therefore he shouldn't be conscripted. And his employer, the builder, says, oh, he's terribly useful, and there's plenty of work for him to do. But the tribunal says, well, actually, his father has a small milk round and he is earning some money. Her sister lives at home, so I presume he can help. So as long as the applicant pays some money to his parents, there's no financial hardship to them. So actually, he's got to be signed up. And another one, and this is lovely, it's just written, you can see it written by Mr. Bannister, Frederick Bannister himself, who says he's a skilled workman, and I think it's of national importance. He's a hot water fitter and a plumber, and he's seeing his work of national importance. Now, no offence to a plumber, that is really important. I mean, I value plumbers, with all the best of them, but the tribunal don't think that his appeal is tenable, because it's not in the national interests that he be retained in civil employment, though he might be regarded as a useful man in his business. So they're just gorgeous documents, very insightful as to the sort of things that were going on in people's lives. So that's been a bit of a whistle-stop gallop through some documents, but they are important ones. Do look at, we've got this index to the Parish Chest, the settlement papers. Do send us an email, do ask us about that. Do come and consult some of our hospital records, some of our boot and shoe records, some of the World War I Tribunal papers. We've just got such a wonderful collection of archives, and I commend them to you, and do hope that we'll see some of you at the archive service very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, I'd now like to welcome Paula Orcott from the Vision of Britain. Over to you, Paula.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our website, A Vision of Britain Through Time. This website is not about individual ancestors. It's about giving you an idea of where your ancestors lived. So giving them a bit of context to the area they lived, and helping to understand what it was a bit about what it was like in the past. And you can search it by the place name or the postcode. And what we give you back is old maps, descriptions from the past, and statistics. So this is the main page of the website at the moment. And what you do is you type a place name or a postcode into the search box on the left. And once you've done that, it will give you back a list of the places that matched the place name you put in. Today we're going to use Corby as our example. As you can see, there are 4 different places that we might have meant. We actually want the Northamptonshire one at the top, so you click on the Corby at the top and it takes you to the place homepage for Corby. Every place in Great Britain has one of these place pages, and the idea is it acts as a stepping stone to all the other information we have about the place, and also that it gives you information straight away. So you can see that in the middle at the top we have 2 maps. The one on the right is an outline map with a marker indicating where in the country we're talking about, and the left is an old historical map. And underneath we have a description written in the 1870s about what Corby was like. So if we want to read that, if we click on the further information, it expands the entry so you can read the entire entry. And once you've read that, you might think, what else can I find out about Corby? So on the left, we have a menu where you can go to historical places and writing. And it gives you what else we have in the system. Now, because Corby was quite a small place until the mid-20th century, there aren't actually that many entries that we have for it. There's a couple references in Bartholomew, which is another 19th century gazetteer, and we have one writer from the travel writers who wrote about it, which is William Camden. I'm going to look at that example. So he's referenced it in his section on Huntingdon and Northampton. And if you click on that, it will take you to his entry where he starts to talk about Corby. Now, if you were looking at a bigger place, there would be lots of other writers who've written about the place you're interested in. William Camden wrote a county by county description of the country. And this is from the 1610 translation, sorry. And the blue dot map on the right shows all of the places that are listed in this chapter of his writing. So to go back to the place page, obviously we have the historical map in the top in the middle. And if you click on that map, it takes you into our historical map library. Now you can see there's a map window on the right hand side. This is zoomed in on the area of the place that you're looking for. So in this case, it's zoomed in on Corby. You can pan and zoom this map as you want. And you'll see that underneath is a list of, you can just see the top of it, there's a list of map sheets. Now this map sheet list will update as you pan and zoom the map window. But the idea is that it presents you with the maps that are most relevant to the scale of map you are looking at in the map window in the place that you're most interested in. We have 3 different kinds of maps: topographic, boundary and land use maps, and you can choose between the tabs to choose which kind of map you want. Now if you go to the list at the bottom and click on one of those maps that you think like the look of, it will open up a new tab with the original map sheet, a scan of the original map sheet in it. Because it's the whole sheet, it won't be zoomed in on the place that you're interested in, but it will be on there somewhere. And you can pan and zoom this, but it also means that we have all the margins. So if there's any publication information on there, that will appear. As you can see, Corby is still quite small on this map from the 1850s. So to go back to the place page again, the other thing we offer is the related websites on the left. And this basically offers external websites, so nothing to do with us, where they have pages about the place that you are interested in. And in this case, we've only got 2, Wikipedia and GeoNames. But if you clicked on either of those links, it will take you to the page on that website that's about the place you're interested in. So in this case, Corby. You'll see we have 2 tabs here. The locations nearby offers other websites that are not quite so geographically precise, but offer information from the general vicinity of the place you're looking for. So Geograph is photographs, National Library of Scotland obviously offers a lot of maps, and we've got OpenStreetMap and GeoNames again. The other thing that we offer is statistics. So we offer them in 2 ways. So the first way is through what we call through time. So if you click on this link towards the bottom of the page, where it says Corby Through Time, it takes you to the modern unitary authority or district. Now, when I say modern, at this point in time, we are talking 2011 census. We do not at the moment have the 2021-22 information in there. This is also relevant to Northamptonshire because obviously in 2021, the unitary authority changed and now it's just North Northamptonshire and West Northamptonshire. But for the purposes of today's demonstration, we're still in 2011 and it's Corby District. So what we have here is all the statistical themes that we have information for. And you can click on any one of those and it will take you to statistics about the place through time. So for today's example, we're going to look at the life and death module. And these will provide you with statistics and graphs for the place. So I chose total births. And as you can see, it's given you a figure going from 1861 through to 2011. We'll talk more about the big change in the middle a bit later on. Now, obviously, the unitary district of Corby not only no longer exists, but it didn't exist far back in time. So the reason we have this time series is because we have estimated the area over a long period of time. So they're not precise figures, but they are best estimates based on a systematic sampling of the population. But if you wanted the original statistics going back to the units that existed at the time, from our place page again, we can look at the units in the past. So if you go to the left-hand menu and use the unit as statistics, it takes you through to which old units existed. Now, because Corby wasn't very big, this list is not as long as some of the larger places will be. But you can see that across the top we have the urban district of Corby, which has statistical information for almost all of our themes, and we have a parish of Corby as well. Now, because Corby wasn't very big in the 19th century, it was actually part of Kettering Registration District. So you can see the total population figure for Kettering Registration District is the top graph, going from 1850 through to 1911. I should say that this information is not coming out of the census. This is from the Register General's annual reports. We do have quite a lot of other statistical information, not just census information. And the graph at the bottom is for Kettering Rural District, which Corby was part of for the first part of the 20th century. And you'll see there's a large spike in births just before the Second World War. And then it drops dramatically. So the reason there was a big change is because Corby became an urban district in its own right in 1939. And after that point, you can track its statistics individually, and you can see there's a big rise from the during the 1950s and 1960s. That's with the expansion of Corby with the growth of the steelworks. And that's it for today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Hello. So now it's time to look at some questions from the chat, and I'll hand over to Deborah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, there's some really informative stuff there for us to go away and think about. There aren't too many questions, actually. Just a couple of things first off, though. But please, folks, do put questions in as we're going along. First one. Angela, there was a question about the time of society meetings, and it was sort of answered in the chat, but I think it might be worth having that just for the purposes of the recording for those people who won't see the chat. So what times are the society meetings and what sort of format do they take?
Okay. Two of the meetings, those at Kettering and Northampton, are just in-person talks, and they start at 7:30 p.m. Kettering one's the second Monday of the month, and the Western Favour's the third Monday. Our Zoom talks, which are the fourth Monday of the month, start also at 7:30, although we open doors at 7 because everybody likes to have a natter and a chat first and what have you. It's grown to quite a friendly community now, and people have found they're related to each other and all sorts of things. So we open the doors at 7 for them. But all details are on our website anyway, so you can look it up there and see what the programme is for the upcoming meetings.
That's great, thank you. Do you have, this is just really clarification for myself, and I may have missed this, do you actually have a sort of research facilities that people go and, or is most of your resources online? It's all pretty much for people to...
No, we don't have our own library or facilities. Okay. We do help desk if people need help at the archives. Or...
Right, okay, that's fine. Well, in terms of research facilities, both obviously the Society of Genealogists, people can go in person, and also clearly the Northamptonshire Archives. Perhaps you could just clarify, do people need to make appointments, or what's the procedure for if people want to come in and look at records, in terms of do they need to order things in advance and so on? So perhaps Sarah, if you would like to go first.
Yeah, booking isn't essential, but it's useful for us, and certainly if you know the particular documents that you want to look at, that you've looked at or looked up on Find My Past, one of the indexes, then it's worth booking the documents to be got out for you in advance, which you can do the week before, so we know that you're coming. It just makes it easier for us because we're a very small team, and we only do 5 document productions during the day, and the more that we can do ahead of time, the easier it is for you and for us.
That's great, thank you. And Elsa, would you like to say something about the societies?
Similarly, the society is open to members free of charge. We do like them to make a booking if they know what they want, to let us know what items we might have to retrieve from store, and again give us about a week's notice, and that's fine. Though if you don't need to have anything retrieved, walk-ins are fine. The members have a small daily search fee. Sorry, non-members have a small daily search fee if they're not members, but they can make use of our facilities, access our material online within the building, etc. All the information about visiting the society is on the library pages of our website.
Great. Okay, thank you. I know there was one other question about education records, but I think, Keith, you answered that quite succinctly in the chat, so that's quite helpful, I think, and it was a fairly specific question as well. Let's see. I don't think there were any other particular questions in the chat. There were a couple of useful references that people made. One just mentioned in terms of heritage centres and museums. There's a heritage centre in Desborough and a museum in Daventry, which people might be interested in. And a couple of newspaper record or suggestions as well. The Rugby Advertiser and the Market Harborough Mail, which is on the British newspaper archive, also seem to have quite a lot of articles and things related to Northamptonshire, so worth looking up. And one person did say that they have done some research in the Rothwell Independent Chapel records, but actually there's not very many of them, unfortunately. They haven't survived very well. So I suppose that's always something for people to be aware of, isn't it? That there may be some records that are available for certain periods, but not widely. But on the other hand, other records may be really quite comprehensive. So I guess that goes across the board, really. So right, there aren't any other questions that I've seen related to our talks today. So I think thank you very much. Oh, one other thing just to ask, in terms of handouts and so on, I know we've got a few links have already been provided, which will go out in the email in relation to the NFHS, but are there any other handouts or copies of the slides being provided, which we will be sending out to people?
You've got leaflets from Northampton Family History Society, list of publications. You've got a leaflet from the archives, and then you've got a 44-page booklet all about researching at the archives. And I think a lot of what Sarah and I have spoken about today, you'll find more details in there, and how to use the service and about their own in-house researcher as well, if you can't visit. So I think hopefully you'll find that all informative.
That's wonderful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I mean it's a joint. I mean it's the Family History Society has very kindly produced the booklet, but we've done it in partnership. So we're very reliant on the Family History Society to help us do these things because we have no money. We are local authority archive service. We have no money, so it's one of the many advantages of working with the Family History Society who help us with these things. So yeah, in a sense, it's our guide. We're happy that represents us in terms of a guide to our sources. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to send my slides if that's helpful. Because while skipping through, if people want to look in detail at some of the pictures, presumably I can send it via WeTransfer or something. It's far too big to email, but
yes, we can talk about that. But yes, thank you. That would be very helpful. I think
if that's helpful, we can try that. Yeah,
lovely. Thank you very much. Just a question for Paula, actually, while I think of it. You were talking to us about Corby there and the work that you're doing. Are you working on other areas within Northamptonshire, or is that particularly Corby the focus at the moment? Or sorry, I may have missed as you were talking. Apologies.
Corby was just an example. We cover the whole county. We cover the whole country.
Right. Okay, wonderful, great, thank you. And is there people can just go to your website and find out more about
visionofbritain.org.uk.
That's great. Okay, thank you. Lovely. And I think, Elsa, we always receive a copy of your slides, don't we?
Yeah, yes, they're already uploaded, ready for Ruth to distribute them. I'd be lovely. I'd be very interested in seeing Sarah's slides. If she can create a PDF copy of them, that'd be great.
Yeah,
And
lovely.
something you may not have spotted, Sarah, someone actually saw one of their ancestors on your slides as they went through. So it was very good. So on that note, I'd like to
There
say,
is, sorry, that one question has just come in
Oh.
for Sarah, wanting to know if the parish chest records cover the whole county, or
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yes, I mean that's one of the joys of it, and rather than having to check through the lists of all the different parishes, the index covers all the ancient parishes, and including Peterborough. Yes, it's why it's so useful. So yeah.
great.
If you've got a name like Brown, there'll be a lot of entries. If you've got a less usual name, then there'll be fewer entries. But the point is, it's comprehensive, and you can hopefully narrow down the surnames you've got, or see all the different parishes in which that particular surname occurs. I mean, because that's people who are doing one name studies will also find it interesting from that point of view.
If I can just add to that, I mean, we've done the records where they survive for the settlement and poor law, but there will be other things like church wardens' accounts and vestry minutes and things that haven't been indexed by name. And of course, they're going to be full of information as well. So that's another source for you to look at. We could talk all day about sources.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much indeed. Thank you for your great presentations, and and thanks folks for the questions. So yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
yeah, thank you all very much.
Thank you.